Welcome to Talking with Doyle, the podcast that gets State Representative Doyle Heffley talking. Doyle, there's been a lot of federal attention, a lot of what people are talking about following that situation in Minnesota a couple of weeks ago now, and regarding ICE and the interactions with police. Now, again, ICE is a federal agency, but you are a state representative, and some people in the state of Pennsylvania are talking about ICE. Maybe just your thoughts, your reflection on everything that's transpired since then.
Well, I think it's really sad what we're seeing happening in Minnesota, and what some elected officials across the nation are kind of encouraging this type of lawlessness. Obviously, what I've said it before in other podcasts, and would encourage everybody, whenever you're encountering police or federal, local, state police, anything like that, just be respectful and be courteous. I mean, we've seen the situation in Texas where shots were fired at an ICE detainment facility, and actually people that were there, immigrants were killed. We've seen situations where law enforcement has been, there was an officer in Maryland just a few weeks ago that was killed. So obviously law enforcement officers are out there to do a job. Just be respectful, right? Don't harass them, and they're not going to harass you. So it's sad what's happening in Minnesota. And look, we've seen this before a few years ago with the BLM riots, right? It seemed to be like people fanning the flames, and we don't need that, right? ICE isn't a new federal agency. This isn't new, all right? The illegal immigrants that are here in this country illegally have been apprehended in the past, and now you have an agency out there that's being more forthcoming, which the people voted for. Like, make no mistake about it, the democracy, the people in this nation voted to stop what was happening with the illegal immigration. You see it at the border. The border is now secure, and people are happy about that, right? We're not opposed to people coming to this country; just come here legally, so we would ask people to be respectful. Throwing bricks at law enforcement officers isn't respectful. Standing in front of vehicles, boxing them in, isn't respectful. Chasing them with your vehicle and then blocking them in, and then trying to run them over when they tell you to get out of the vehicle, that's not going to end well for anybody, right? Not for the law enforcement officer how to make that split-second decision, or for that individual or their family. But it was a bad decision that one individual made, and unfortunately, it didn't work out well for her or anybody. So we would just ask people to be respectful and mindful, and also for other elected officials to be respectful. And look, these law enforcement agents are out there doing their job. In the legislature, we can change laws, and they can change laws. But right now, the law of the land is that if you're here illegally in this country, you're not allowed to be here. If you commit a crime here illegally in this country, if you rape somebody, murder somebody, sell drugs, commit fraud, or anything like that, you should be deported. And that's what ICE is doing right now. And we should be standing behind our law enforcement officers, not harassing them.
What do you think about the job ICE is doing? Because this is a Pennsylvania issue, because some leaders in the House Democrats have asked for, I'm looking just here at my phone just so I make sure I have the verbiage right. They've called in a statement to end ICE raids, detention, and accountability for its agents here in Pennsylvania.
Well, there is accountability for federal agents, right? There's nobody's running around. Like I drove down from Carbon County to Harrisburg. I don't see this happening. There's not unaccountability for federal agents. They are accountable. But it's interesting that all of a sudden now they want to jump on this bandwagon and fan the flames. In 2024, there were 1,400 individuals apprehended here illegally in Pennsylvania. There were 1,400 illegal immigrants apprehended in Pennsylvania in 2024. In 2025, there were 3,000. So ICE has definitely stepped up, and immigration has stepped up, and you see that with the Trump. But so 1,400 people under Joe Biden, and now it's 3,000 under Trump. These are still the same federal agents that worked in 2024 doing the exact same thing. It's just we're seeing it broader now because we're cracking down on it a little bit harder because we know there's more people out there. Where was their outrage for those when it was happening in the past? This isn't something new. And part of the problem is that you have these so-called sanctuary cities that don't want to follow federal law. So we could go on a long discussion about how, when cities declared themselves to be sanctuaries from some of the COVID mandates, there was a big uproar. But now, so I think what people need to understand is when these cities like Philadelphia, and you have a district attorney down there who was impeached for not doing his job, just a terrible, awful elected official. Murder rates in Philly had soared under him. Crime rates soared. The only reason crime rates came down is because he stopped prosecuting crimes. Mm-hmm. But now you have people, the sheriff of Philadelphia and this gentleman, who are saying that they're a sanctuary city. So that means that if there's an illegal immigrant that gets arrested for a crime, the local police already picked that individual up. They're now in jail. They're incarcerated. They've been apprehended because they committed a crime. They don't inform ICE. So they could inform the Federal Immigration Service. They could pick them right up at that point in the prison and deport them. But they're a sanctuary city, so they don't. They release that criminal, illegal immigrant back into the community. So then ICE has to go out there and put on all the protective gear, because ICE agents get shot at all the time, because this isn't, these aren't migrant farm workers, right? The people that they're detaining, these people are for the most part hardened criminals and gang members. So they could keep them while they're incarcerated and turn them right over to ICE, but they release them back into the community where they're committing more crimes and where federal agents have to go out and get them. Instead of just wanting to grandstand and make political speeches, what they should be doing is working with our federal partners to cut down the amount of time that ICE agents have to go out in the community and enforce these laws when we already have somebody in prison because they've already been arrested for committing a crime in the community. That right there could really stem a lot of the ICE apprehensions that now we have to go out and do the job twice.
Your role as a state representative, obviously I want to bring this back to the people. There's no sanctuary cities in Carbon County, correct?
No.
So what can we do, I guess, to improve the lives of people in Carbon County and across the state of Pennsylvania when we talk about that? It sounds like it might be an issue, from your perspective, if I'm right, about sanctuary cities a little bit.
We definitely want to encourage municipalities, and I know the district that I represent will work closely with ICE. If somebody is incarcerated, they would turn them over to the federal agents. They could pick them up at that point and get them out. The other thing is the cost. You're looking at approximately $2 billion a year in additional costs to the taxpayers of Pennsylvania caused by illegal immigration, right? So you look at education. There's some local schools where they get 500-600 kids show up on the first day of school that they didn't even know about, that are here. Their parents are illegal. Their kids are undocumented, and they show up at the school. The schools have to take them. And now you're looking at teaching English as a second language. The schools are scored annually on test scores, and you have kids that are there for 3 weeks, then they move out, then another. I mean, this is hundreds of kids every day going, every couple of weeks going in and out of these school systems, and it just drives the cost up for education. That's property tax dollars. That's another cost. Healthcare cost. Somebody goes to the hospital, they're here illegally. They don't have health care. Now they're going to get that care. Maybe they need a surgery. Maybe they have mental health issues. There's issues in mental health in hospitals across this Commonwealth where people that are in long-term care are here illegally, and they're in long-term care and costing thousands of dollars a day for treatment. Who's picking up that cost? And so, it's one thing for these sanctuary cities to say, "Oh, we're going to be sanctuary cities." Nobody's opposed to immigration. If people want to come here legally and be part of our country, get a job. I drive around. You see how many gas station owners, small business owners, people that came from other countries that came here as immigrants, started a business, and been successful. They did it legally. Coming here illegally is not going to end well for anybody. So, and blaming it on ICE agents or conducting yourself in a manner where you're going to be disruptive to what they are trying to do in our community is not the solution. So, we want to definitely stand with our law enforcement. And I would call on my colleagues on the Democratic side, instead of looking at, defending illegal immigrants, let's stand up for the residents of Pennsylvania. Let's stand up for the taxpayers of Pennsylvania. Let's stand up for the hardworking people that are going to get these jobs when illegals aren't cutting their rate, the salaries to take the jobs from. Let's stand up for the people that in a community that lost children to overdoses And we know that the Mexican drug cartels, it's a proven fact. You can ask it, the Mexican drug cartels control the fentanyl and the drugs that come in to Pennsylvania, right? We're losing 6,000 Pennsylvanians a year to overdoses. Now those numbers have been coming down. We've been working on that. But let's get these illegal immigrants that are committing crimes off of our streets and give ICE the ability to do it. For years, people that were apprehended would be turned into the police, and they'd be incarcerated, and the local departments would contact ICE and say, we have an illegal immigrant in custody, and they would say to turn them loose. And people were fed up with that under Biden, under Obama. And now the new administration says, if you call us, we're going to come up and take them away. So if they're already incarcerated, let's deport them right away. And then we just got to end this chaos. I mean, blowing the whistles, throwing rocks, boxing in federal agents when they're out there doing their job. I mean, those people should be arrested and prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. And for local elected officials to say that is somehow acceptable, where in any part of society is it acceptable to drive your car into a law enforcement agent?
I want to put a bow on. It's hard to bow. I want to put a bow on this episode. What can we do as legislatures? Is there any bills that we see coming up in the near future that might address this topic?
Well, I think one thing we can do is work closely with our local law enforcement, obviously making sure that our local law enforcement officers have the tools they need, and making sure that our local police departments and prosecutors are working with federal agents to make sure that our streets are safe. I think that's one of the key things that we can do. And then at the end of the day, it really saves costs. Now, as a state legislator, we can't impact immigration laws. We can't change that. But making sure that the people that are applying for public benefits are here legally and are, allowed to have access to those public benefits, I think that's one of the keys that we can do as well as legislators. But just really, I think at the end of the day, as elected officials, you call for calm. Enough of this this chaos in the streets like we see in Minnesota. We don't need that here in Pennsylvania. We're much better than that. Those people out there need to grow up.
I think that's a good way to wrap up this episode. So there you heard Doyle's thoughts. You can feel free to keep the conversation going by leaving your thoughts below and tune into future episodes of Talking with Doyle.